Welcome to the Endgame Checkmate MasterClass. In this video, you will learn how to checkmate with only a queen, only a rook, only two bishops, and only a knight and a bishop. So let's start with the easiest, which is only a queen. When you have a queen, so you have to get the king in the last rank and checkmate with using your king and the queen. So first you move your queen and cut the circulation of the king off. So in this position, if you go here, the king can come here. So you come here and cut this rank off for the king. Now you follow what's called the horse method. You have to follow the king like a knight. What I mean by that is, if there would have been a knight here on this file, it would have attacked the king like this. So you come here to the square where the knight was supposed to come. Come here, the king goes there. Then you come here again, because if the knight was here, I would have attacked the king like this. You keep following the king like that, and the king in the end will be forced to go here. And when the king goes here, you continue with the knight method and cut this file off and continue to follow the king like a knight would. Once the king is on the last rank, you have to make sure it's not stalemate. For example, if I go here and continue to follow the king like a knight, in this position, this is stalemate, because when the queen comes here, the king can no longer move anywhere. So this will be a blunder. So after you get the king on the last rank, you bring your own king here to help checkmate. And this king will be forced to keep moving, and make sure this king always has breathing room, because if it doesn't and you accidentally in this position go here, this is stalemate. So you bring your king here, and be careful, if you bring your king all the way back, this is also stalemate, because this is not stalemate because the king can go here, but it can easily be a stalemate in other positions. So you bring the king off to the other rank, not the last rank, to the second last rank, and you checkmate using your king. When the king is eyeing the queen, the other king, then you can checkmate like this. And this is how you win a queen and a king. Let me recap. You use the knight method to cut the king off the files, and after the king moves, you continue to follow the king like a knight would. So, and when the king is on the last rank, you stop following the king and you bring your own king. And when the king is in contact, you checkmate. Now I'm going to show you how to checkmate with only a rook. This is similar, but there is no knight method. When you have a rook, you have to cut the king off like you did when you had a queen, but you don't follow it in like a knight. Now in this position, this would be a check, but you have to not give a check. You have to go here and make sure that your own king is on the other side. For example, if I go here right now and form a wall here with the rook, both of the kings are on the same side, which you do not want. You want them to be on different sides of the wall. So you go here. Now the rook forms a wall here and the king is on the other side of the wall. So you have to make sure that your rook is far away from the opponent king, so he can't take it. And in this position, you have to give what's called opposition. Opposition is basically when the kings stare at each other. For example, this is opposition, but you have to make your opponent give opposition. What I mean by that is, if you go here right now, you will give opposition, but your opponent will simply move his king away from opposition. Let me demonstrate. If I go here, the king simply moves away from opposition. So you maneuver your rook around, and now you follow your king, this king, because this king will now be forced to give opposition. Now this is opposition. This king was forced to come here. If not, he would have been forced gradually. So as soon as the king gives opposition, you check with this rook and you move your king again here. In this position, you have to make this king give opposition. So if you go here, you will be giving opposition. So you just go here, waste a move, and now you follow the king. And gradually, this king will forced to give opposition. Now you do this, do the same thing. You don't give opposition, you make him give opposition. You maneuver your rook around, you follow the king, and gradually the king will be forced to come here, and when this happens, this will be checkmate. And that's how you win with a king and a rook. Let's recap again. You have to first, step 1 is cutting the king off, and your king and his king should be on different sides of the border. If the king, for example, in this position simply moved here, instead of like, you just cut the king off like this, and if the king like does something like going here again, you just simply cut, and on the last rank you make him give opposition, you don't give opposition. So here you cut him off, and after this you have to make him give opposition and give a check. If the position is this, if this is the position, so you don't follow the king around. Although this, no, I'm sorry, there. If this is the position, you do not give opposition, but instead you just move the rook around and force him to give opposition. Remember, never give opposition yourself, force the other king to give opposition. And that's how you checkmate with a rook and a king. Now we come to the trickier checkmates, which is 2 bishops and a knight and a bishop. These two are really tricky, and you have to be careful with these checkmates. Now, when you have 2 bishops, you have to control the central 4 squares with the bishops. What I mean by that is, you come with the king in the center of the board, and you bring your bishops here in contact with the king. Now these bishops are in the central 4 squares. Now, if you pay careful attention, you can highlight when you're playing your games, you can highlight to learn. The king cannot escape this box. Not really a box, but a trapezium. This king cannot escape this trapezium. It has only these I think 12 squares. So you have to make this king go at the back rank and cut all of these squares off. How you do this is like this. Let me demonstrate. You'll go here. As soon as the king goes back, you come with your bishops like this. You bring your own king. When the king goes here, you just waste a move. And gradually, like this, now you make the box smaller. Now the box is smaller than before. And you bring your king. And you continue to do so. Remember not to go here, because now the king escapes out of the box. You go here, and now the king is on the last rank. Now what you have to do is make sure the king has no escape squares. The king can't go here because this bishop, can't go here because this bishop. So you bring your king here, and now this king cannot escape the last rank whatsoever. You have to be careful of stalemates, because you can stalemate in this position accidentally. So how you win this is, you bring the king to, you cut one of this side of the board off, and you bring the king to this king, and then deliver checkmate. What I mean by that is like this. First of all, you have to make sure the king can't escape. Let me bring the king over here like this. First, let me make sure the king can't escape. Here, because now here, now the king is here. Now I have to cut this square off. I'm gonna go maneuver this bishop. The king has escaped, which is not good. Let's go here, and then the king goes there. Yeah, here. Now the king is forced here. Now you play a waiting move with this bishop to force the king here. Now you cut this off. You have to prevent the king from going here, so I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna give opposition. Now the king is forced here. Now the king can only go here, so I'm gonna cut. first I'm gonna play a waiting move actually. So gonna go. Here. If I go here, the king escapes, which I don't want to happen. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna bring my bishop closer to the king. And now simply when these bishops are here, the king can't go here because of this blockade. The king can't enter here because the king repels. And now you checkmate by, first of all, giving, after this square is cut off, only these two squares remain. You give blitz check. The king is forced to the last rack. Only one square remains. The king can't go here, neither go here, nor go here. So now you go here, and this is checkmate. Let's recap that again. You build this trapezium with the bishops and make sure first you bring the bishops in the center 4 squares with the king. Then you make this alignment with the king and the bishop. You align your bishops. You slowly creep your bishops in with the king. You can't just go with the bishops or the king will take your bishops. You have to go in. You have to make sure highlight these squares just to, have an idea. And after you force the king on the back rank, make sure the king cannot get out of the back rank. And slowly, after the king is on the back rank, start cutting these squares off of the back rank. Like try suffocating the king. Like this, maneuver your bishop here. This is cut off. Then after this, you have to cut that off. You couldn't just go here because the king would have taken. So you played a waiting move with the bishop. Just a waiting move, does nothing much. Now here, simply here, now you have to cut this off. I messed it up kind of, but yep, I figured it out. Here, now the king, remember not to stalemate because in this position, this would have been stalemate. So be careful of that. You would have gone like here maybe, or maybe just a waiting move here. After this, the king can't go here. Only these 2 squares remain. Here, checkmate, and you win. Now you have to pay close attention because this is the hardest checkmate in chess, and this is really tough. So step 1 is to identify the color square of your bishop. This bishop is a dark squared bishop. So you have to bring the king in either of these 2 corners of the board because you have to checkmate with a bishop and a knight. So you have to bring the king in this corner or in that corner, not in these corners. These are the wrong corners. So first you have to force the king on the last rank again. Either of these back ranks will work. So you bring your king like this and continue to give opposition and bring your bishop in and force the king. Now the king can go to either of these 2 squares. I'll show you what happens if the king directly goes there. Like if the king just walks there, your work will be easier if the king does that. But this is obviously stockfish, and stockfish plays the best thing, which is to go to the opposite color square of the bishop. Now what you have to do is you have to force the king there, and you can't let the king get out of the box. So your pieces need to work together, and you have to listen carefully because this is really tough. First, you have to bring your knight to either of these 2 squares and control this square. That's what you have to do. Basically, you have to bring the knight such that the knight controls this square, the square where the opposite color of the bishop is. So I have to bring my knight here or here. So here. So I will bring my knight slowly here. And now I'm gonna give this check. Now my king is here. Now what you have to do is you have to make a W with the knight. Remember, a W. This is kind of tricky, but you have to do this. So I have to make a W with the knight. First, I'm gonna go here. No, first I think I have to force the king off this thing. Yeah, you have to force the king off. So you play a waiting move with the bishop and you block this square so the king doesn't go here. Now you have to make a W with the knight. So you go here. Now you have to bring your king along with you. Now it looks like the king is escaping. It really looks like that, but the king is not escaping. You simply continue with your W if the king ever goes here. Continue with your W, and now you have to bring the bishop and make sure the king doesn't escape. Now the knight controls these two squares. The king controls this. This king can now escape using this path. So you have to cut this path off with the bishop, like this. Now the king is here. Now you have to force the king there. So how will you do that? You calculate. The knight controls these two squares. The bishop now controls the diagonal. The king controls this and this. So the king is repelled. Now you just play a waiting move with the bishop. Just wait like this. And now the king has to go. And when the king goes, you come closer. Now you have to prevent the king from coming here. So you come closer with the bishop. Like, I think this is the right move. Yep. This. Now the king can't go here or here because of the knight. Now the king goes here. Now what you have to do is bring the king forward. And it looks like the king is going back there, but it's not. Because the knight controls this square, the king controls this square. And now you have to give a check. And the bishop controls this square, the knight controls that, and the king controls this. It's all good. Now the king will be forced to come here. So you just play a waiting move with the bishop. Just wait like this. Wait. And the king will be forced to come in the corner. Now you continue to make your W out of... Not right now. I think you have to make sure the cap. First, let's push the king there. Yeah. Let's play waiting with the bishop. Here. Now the king is forced there. Now we continue to make our W. And simply give this check because now the king can't go there because of the bishop. We go here. We protect our bishop, obviously. Sorry, the knight. We protect our knight. And now the king is slowly but gradually going to the corner. We close this square up so that the king does not escape. Now the king goes to the corner. And now you have to be careful because now you can stalemate easily. So now you have to make it so that the king has only two squares to move, just like you did with the queen. But with the bishop, it's kind of trickier. How you'll do it is basically you'll get the king on the opposite color of the bishop and get your bishop on its color and make sure it's not stalemate and the king doesn't escape in the process. So I'm gonna go here first. Now I'm gonna play a waiting move so that the king can now go here. Yup. And now I'm gonna play a move like I'm gonna get my knight out of here because the knight will be used in the end of the game, not in the end of the checkmate, not really right now. I'm gonna play a waiting move. Actually, in this position, I have checkmate in 2. So, if you look carefully enough in the end, when the king is cut off, now the king only has 2 squares to move. So now I have to look for a checkmate. So you have to look for all of the checks now. I have only one check, which is with this knight. And when after this check, the king can't go here because of the bishop, can't go here because of the king, and the king has to go here. After which this will be checkmate. So I'm gonna go here, check, and checkmate with a knight and a bishop only. Let's recap what happened in this. First, step 1 was to bring your king to the back rank. Step 2 was to control the wrong square with the horse. And step 3 was to start making a W. Like this was wrong. First, you have to make sure the king is here to make a W. If you start making a W here, the king will just go back. So you play a waiting move like this. The king is now here. Now you cut the circulation off. And then you make a W. And if now you can't make a W directly because the king takes, so you bring your own king. And now you make a W regardless. Don't be scared if the king walks here. Just make a W. And just highlight some squares and cut the king off. Don't give a check, because if you give a check, the king escapes. Cut this diagonal off and make the king go, and then bring your bishop closer. Cut this square off too and force the king. If ever the king runs, remember the knight controls because of the W method, and you just wait and then cut this off with the bishop like this. After this, you wait. Now the king only has one move. After this, you continue making your W and you give this check, last check of the W. You cut this whole thing off, and now you give the king only 2 squares to move, and the king only has 2 squares to move. You figure out a checkmate. You get your knight out first of all, because you have to give a checkmate to the bishop, and make sure the king has 2 squares even when the knight gets out. So in this position, you'll always have checkmate in all positions. Just be careful not to stalemate, because it's kind of easy to stalemate in this position. You go here and here, because let me give you an example. I'll not give you an example actually. I'll just tell you not to stalemate. Just look carefully, and the king cannot escape anywhere. And give it checkmate. I hope you find this video really interesting, because after this video, you'll be able to checkmate with at least a queen, a rook, and 2 bishops. You need a little practice to checkmate with a knight and a bishop. And also 2 bishops is kind of tricky too. Queen and rook is really easy. I hope you liked the video. Check out other videos on my channel. I have instructive videos which will teach you how to climb the rating ladder. I have videos which will show you amazing puzzles, so you can check those out. I'm gonna leave. I'm really hungry. I'm gonna order some food. And I hope you have an amazing day. Peace out. Bye-bye.